Who is the MD of Kareem. Would you like to come here or?
Hello everyone, thank you very much. It's great to be part of this conference. So we're talking about the future, and we're talking about as if it's something that's somewhere far out in the distance. The truth is, it's happening, and it's here already, and it's a part of our lives. आप में से कितने लोगों ने करीम को इस्तेमाल किया है? चले, आप सबकी जिंदगी में तो करीम आ चुकी है। मुझे कोई फॉरेनर नजर नहीं आ रहा तो मैं उर्दू में ही बात कर लेता। तो अभी सिर्फ करीम तो पहली एप्लीकेशन आप देख रहे हैं जो डिजिटल शेयरिंग इकोनॉमी की। अब लेट्स थिंक अबाउट होम कुक्ड फूड. I can talk about Kareem, but since you already use it, you know about it. Let's talk about. Go back a few slides. So, as I said, the future is already here. Now, खाना पहले आप अपने घर में बनाते हैं या रेस्टोरेंट पे जाते हैं या रेस्टोरेंट से खाना ऑर्डर कर लेते हैं. So you order food from a restaurant. But what about home cooked food? How will the future of home cooked food be? Now, everyone will not need to make home cooked food. So let's say one person is feeling hungry. They go to an app called gharkakhana.pk and someone is cooking in the comfort of her home or his home. And the moment they cook that food, they put a picture of that food online on gharkakhana.pk and you swipe. If I like that food and I see the rating of this person is very good, their food gets picked up like this, I swipe right, just like Tinder. And the moment you swipe right, the closest Kareem rider goes to the person who has cooked the food, knocks her door or his door and collects the food. The payment is done through Usman's Easy Paisa. And in a very short period of time, within 5 to 10 minutes, freshly cooked home cooked food from someone else's stove is on my table, delivered to me by a diligent rider. And so who pays the rider? So the person who eats pays 2 people and the same app is doing this. So maybe the rider has MobiCash installed on his phone, so he gets paid through MobiCash. Now let's say this person who is cooking food, male or female, also has a job, so doesn't have time to do groceries. So this app, Gharkakhana.pk, is integrated through an API with an app called, the whole process finishes, you give it a 4-star or a 5-star, you're happy with your home cooked food, and now the person who's making the food, after they've done 3 or 4 deliveries, gets a ping from Sabzi Gosht BK, and it says that we've seen that you've sold 33 servings of biryani on Gharkakhana.pk. It seems you may have run out of rice, saffron, ghee, chan masala, so on and so forth. And it gives you a proposed order. Would you like to top up by ordering this? All this person does is says yes. And while you're out doing errands or sleeping, a rider goes to the supermarket where your order is already ready in a packet because the order has been received through an API integration. So your local Carrefour or your local Carrefour Express or maybe even your local Perchun wala who is now on this app receives this order, prepares this order. It's like a food panda for Perchun, except they already know what you've been selling and what do you need. So you press it and again the ingredients are now delivered at your home. Now, this is not very far away. It's already happening. I know startups who are building these 3 things. So in less than 6 months, this will happen in Islamabad, just the way it's happening in New York, just the way it's happening in San Francisco. Now, normally, this kind of a transaction would require at least 17 different conversations. You talk to someone, you call someone up, you go to the sabzi wala, you collect sabzi, you go buy tail, you're moving into places, you're having multiple conversations, and multiple times cash is exchanging hands. Except in this case, so much went on, and not a single conversation took place. And not a single penny of cash was exchanged. This is the future and it's here. As someone famous said, "Tabdili aane rahi, tabdili aane rahi." Now, what does this do? This is a true democratization of assets and skills. If you have a skill, you do not need to have a formal job to offer it to someone else. If you have an asset, someone will make use of it. Now, an interesting statistic, the United States of America owns about 30 million drill machines. Every other household has a drill machine. On average, every drill machine has only been used for 16 minutes in its lifetime. 95% of the time, your car is parked. And even when it does get used, it gets used by one person. It's built for 5. So imagine normally its utilization is 5%, but if you consider that it's built for 5 people and only 20% of the people are using it, it's being used 20% of the time. So we, ladies and gentlemen, are living in an era of opportunity where the technology will democratize the use of assets. And you will say that, but this will not happen in Pakistan because there aren't as many mobile phone users, or there aren't as many smartphones, internet का क्या होगा, लोग तो समझ नहीं पाते चीज़ों को, income लोगों की बड़ी कम है. Well, there are 139 million mobile phones in Pakistan. There are 34 million people who have an internet connection today in Pakistan, and this number is growing exponentially. The average age of a Pakistani, 70% of people are under the age of 40. And while the official income is about $1,500, because obviously we don't pay taxes, the real economy is getting close to $3,000 per capita. That, ladies and gentlemen, puts a lot of financial power in people's hands. So what are the challenges to an economy like this? Just regulation. Is Kareem a rent-a-car company or is it a technology company? If tomorrow Kareem puts doctors on demand on its app, does it make Kareem a hospital? So, and Mandi Express, who's basically sabzi gosht PK, is it the same as Metro? Should it be taxed and regulated the same way as Metro or not? So these are challenges which will need to be overcome. But what kind of social change can this economy achieve? The first and foremost thing is empowerment. Women empowerment, youth empowerment, the ability for people to go out and get a job, to start a business and not be dependent on anyone for it. So it's my prediction that just this sharing economy, which will include ride-hailing, foods from home, handyman services, it will create 250,000 jobs by the year 2018 and 2 million jobs by 2020. Thank you very much.
Our today's discussion is going to be about what is going to be the future of entrepreneurship. And as we all heard them, all four of them come from very different industries, but all of these industries have seen some sort of a technological revolution in the past, which is actually redefining the way how it has worked. So I would just like to, just have your opinion about what is going to be the future of entrepreneurship with an explosion of startups everywhere. Do you think that it is the innovation, the technological innovation that is bringing every person stepping into this startup ecosystem, or is it just going to be is it going to have a lasting impact, or is it just going to be another buzzword out there, and it's just going to die out with time. So what do you think? We'll start with you, Junaid. What do you think that it's going to be like?
So, in the traditional sense, an entrepreneur is someone who would start a business or a big business and employ a lot of people. Another definition is to be self-employed,
Yeah.
to not work for someone, to work at your own hours, to work at your own pace. And the gig economy or the sharing economy is suddenly allowing millions of people to be able to do that. If you have a car, but not a job and a license, you can go out and at your own suitable timings drive for a Kareem or an equivalent and start making your own living. You've already become an entrepreneur because you are the captain of your economic future. And the same thing, if you're a good cook, earlier on you had to open a restaurant, you had to do conventional marketing for people to find out about your work. Well, now you put together some recipes, you cook a couple of test dishes, you make a Facebook page, and suddenly you have a market. So it's easier than ever before to be an entrepreneur. Back then, paperwork used to be difficult. Now you scan and send something across immediately. You have to do a contract. You have to print stuff out. Now you've got DocuSign and so many others. So I think the true age of entrepreneurship is here, where not every entrepreneur will be creating a new idea or a new platform or a new startup, but nearly everyone will have an opportunity to work for themselves in what is becoming a peer-to-peer servicing economy.
Um, Martin, what about you? Like, you exist in an industry in which the barriers to entry have been immensely high because there has to be, I mean, we all know that fashion requires a lot of capital infrastructure development. It has a lot of vertically and horizontally integrated supply chains. So, how do you think that, with the advent of modern technology, 3D printing, like you said, you're using these parametric modern laser cutting, and you did mention that it is going to bring in a lot of young designers into the space. How do you think that that space is going to transform, and what impact it's going to have on the economies?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot easier for young people to enter this market if the means of production are more democratized. If I, as a fashion designer or product designer, don't have to have a huge company, buy a factory, and have all these all these machines set up in the way just to create my products. If I can go to a makerspace or any place that has a 3D printer or a laser cutter and create any product that I want to, because that's what I think is great about these new machines, that they can make a huge variety of different types of products, and it doesn't have to be has to be set up. You only need a design for a specific product, put it in this machine, and then you can create your specific design. So I think by lowering all the investment costs, it creates an environment where young people or old people or anyone with a really good idea can test it out and see if it works as a commercial product.
Great. Fawad, your thoughts on the future of
Uh,
entrepreneurship?
I don't think startups will go away like the dot com bubble or something like that. Obviously, there will always be there. Things are getting easier by the day. But at the same time, while it is getting easier, it's also getting difficult. Like us, for example, because now we have to compete with international markets because it's now a global thing. I mean, like we can be the best studio in Islamabad, gaming studio in Islamabad, but it's not good enough because we have to beat the best gaming studios in San Francisco and other places because our games are on iPhone App Stores, on Google Play Store. So we have to just compete with all the millions and thousands of games and things like that. If I want to make a social network site or something like that, I have to first beat Facebook. Maybe find a niche somewhere to connect local people or something like that. But still, you are competing with international companies and things. So it's going to be difficult, but I think still innovation and genuine creativity will find its way. Uh, but uh, uh, you have to be creative enough to beat that, and I think it's getting more and more cutthroat market for everyone. So that's one thing. As Jay said, like Khana and something
enterprises introducing your digital payments. What is your take on future of entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so look, it's no news that there's a huge boom of startups happening in Pakistan. I think there are a few good things happening. So I keep talking about financial inclusion and why it's important. First and foremost, the more people you include in the informal financial services and provide them ways to pay and get paid for their services, the more opportunities it's going to create for new entrepreneurs to come in and fill gaps that there are in the economy, right? That's number one. Secondly, I think I'll talk about e-commerce quickly. So today we are at about, in Pakistan, we're at about $150 billion in terms of market size. Now that number will grow to almost 5 billion by 2020. So that's a leapfrog that our market is going to experience. Where is all that money going to come from? It's going to come from people that we financially include, and it's going to new startups that will serve those people, right? So at any given point, I'll give you an example. We on EasyPay, we have about 250 merchants already online today. And we have more than 800 to 1,000 people in queue waiting for digital payments on their startups. And most of these are tech-based young people who are not being served by conventional banks. I mean, these are young kids who want to start a business. They go out, nobody gives them a lending hand. No bank is interested in them because they obviously they can't promise those volumes and those numbers that conventional banks look for. And that's where we step in. And then we have accelerators popping up. I mean, I see one of my colleagues here from Telenor, who's done great work on an accelerator that we've launched a couple of years ago. And all of these things are helping shape a more conducive sort of environment. So I think yes, there's going to be a huge explosion of startups. It's already happening, like Junaid said. And one last thing that really encourages me, and so I work with a lot of these startups, and you'll be surprised how many of these are girls, women who are starting up their businesses. It's amazing. So it's really encouraging.
Well, I guess you just touched upon the role of incubators and accelerators. So I would just step back, and since the entire economies are being redefined, the business models are being redefined, what do you think is going to be the role of schools and the education institutions? That is entrepreneurship something that can be taught? I mean, if with the advent of financial institutions being set up, more and more funding and investment opportunities being available, barriers to entering into starting your own businesses, just fall down. So where does the role of education come in then? Where does the role of schools and institutions and universities come into play? So anyone of you can answer.
Well, if you look at traditional business schools, they prepare people to go out and sell toothpaste and soap for the rest of their life, right? So the most coveted positions when you get out of business school are to work with a P&G and be a deodorant salesman for the rest of your life. And I think that could be a change, a starting point, where we can come to schools eventually, but it has to start with universities. Now, LUMS, for example, is doing a far better job than IBA, which is Golders Business School, and that's because they talk about entrepreneurship when they have an event or when they have a ceremony in their university. They invite one of the ex-LUMS alumni who are successful entrepreneurs, so they celebrate their entrepreneurs. Whereas if you go to other institutions, they always idealize the CEO of a bank or a toothpaste company. So I think, and then one more thing that where I feel schools can come into play is when we are trying to hire people and we're trying to get people to come and work for startups, and we're telling them that hey, we'll give you shares. Like everyone who works with Kareem, everyone is a shareholder. But we make about whatever we get paid in terms of cash in the market, we're only able to pay half of that. Parents don't allow kids to do that. Oh, there will be no stability. How will you get married if you don't have a fixed job? Oh, but there's social status associated with working with Negro or ICI. And so that is where schools can play an important role, where schools can talk about entrepreneurship, where schools can idealize entrepreneurs as heroes. I think that itself will create a sea change. And schools should talk to parents.
Well, diamond would require a
So
lot of convincing.
I wouldn't say hindrances, but one of the biggest forces which creates a hindrance for entrepreneurship often is parents.
I personally think that education can start introducing this entrepreneurship way before. I mean, you mentioned business school. I never went to a business school, and now still I'm an entrepreneur. But I think, as you rightly said before, everyone becomes an entrepreneur maybe in this century. So I think business or entrepreneurship should be taught in primary school. And then whichever direction you go to, if you go to design or if you go to a real business school or if you go to any other type of education, you already have this entrepreneurship, this idea in your mind of how you should do things like this. So I think in primary school is the perfect place to start with, exercises and trying it out, making group projects where you should start like a mock-up company, doing whatever,
The lemonade
something
stall.
new. Yeah, the lemonade stall, but also how you can develop products and services that add value, not just trying to sell toothpaste or lemonade, but coming up with these ideas that might change the world in the end.
Yeah, I'd just like to second Martin's comment here. I think I'm a firm believer in the fact that schools and the education system, obviously it has its merits, it prepares you for the real world, but entrepreneurship can't be taught. Business schools typically teach you how to manage a business well, but they can't teach you how to come up with ideas and how to implement it. Perhaps a little bit, but I think as a society, we, like Junaid mentioned, we sort of shy away from setting up our own business because of several social fears that we have. Well, what if I fail? What if I can't provide for my family? I mean, these are normal sort of questions that everybody has when they're starting their own business. But I think it has to start at a young age where you encourage your kids to come up with ideas and to implement something and remove that fear of failure. That's very important.
In Pakistan, we don't start at very young age. Abroad I've seen like 14 years, 15-year-old kids, doing anything except from selling newspapers, so like that's not doing things like that. In Pakistan, we don't really see that until whether the person has graduated or not. One other thing I also want to say, other than from entrepreneurship, is technical skills. Like when I graduated, there was no Android phone, there was no iPhone, things like that. But now I have to make games for Android and iPhone. So the tech market, IT market is always changing. You always have to keep up with that. But the universities and schools, they don't. Their courses are usually 20 years, 30 years back, and they just stay the same. Even big universities. I graduated from NUS. I'm sure the curriculum of NUS would be more or less the same. It wouldn't have changed a lot. So the world has changed a lot since I graduated. So they have to keep up with that. Even in MCA, we had a lot of artists obviously in our games. So MCA took a long time to do 3D digital art, and they still don't do it that well. But they have started their courses and things like that. But they should have started, I don't know, 15 years back, when there were movies coming like Shrek or things like that. But they didn't. They were just still doing traditional art, which is okay. They should have started like 3D computerization and art.
I think programming should also be, the third language you learn in school. Maybe you have your native language, then English, and then coding. That should just be in primary school already a thing, because all of design, I see in design specifically, I mean, there's hardly any traditional designer left that draws and that you generate your own drawings and come up with a perfect design. It's all becoming programming. So you're writing code that then writes your design for you, because you make these products that are unique for each and every one. You need to have the code in order. I mean, you're not going to draw designs, you're going to code designs, I believe. So that should
I
definitely
think
also be
what you're saying, Martin, is I took my first ever programming class when I went to college, right? By the time we were 18, 19. But the first C++ class I took, it was not complicated. And I could have been taught the same thing in 7th grade,
Yeah.
and would have still been able to learn the same thing.
Yeah, and then it becomes a second nature. Whereas if you learn it on an old age, I mean, it's hard to learn a language at an old age. If you're a kid and you live somewhere, it's much easier. So it should be like that. It should just be a second nature, I think.
So
Everyone should know how to
basically,
code.
Everyone.
so there has to be a redefinition of also what the basic skills that need to be taught at a very early age, understanding needs to be at the school level, right? Is that what you all are agreeing on?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so just before we proceed to the last bit of our discussion, in the last 5 minutes, we'll be taking questions from the audience. There are small cue cards that have been distributed, so you can just write your questions, and we'll take them from our panelists in the last 5 minutes. So talking about the role of incubators and accelerators, like we have seen, I mean, they have already existed in the Silicon Valley and the other parts of Europe and the rest of America for the past 10 to 15 years, but the trend is now falling to the rest of the world as well, and a lot of the same models are being replicated all over. We've seen almost like 5 to 6 new incubators and accelerators opening up in Pakistan as well. Do you think that replicating the exact same models that have been applied to Silicon Valley over here going to be conducive enough to actually, push the entrepreneurship forward, or there is something that, in terms of, some localization needs to be done, and the local economy dynamics need to be understood in terms of, pushing innovation forward?
A quick question from the audience. Does everyone know what an incubator is?
Chicken and eggs,
So,
right?
just I kind of picked up on that. So, what an incubator is a shared working space with the basic facilities that are provided, which are conducive to building a business. So, for example, internet, office space, an accountant, some programmers, and some government departments run incubators. LUMS runs an incubator. So if you have an idea, you apply, and every few months they have a new batch which they call a cohort. So you apply, and then once you're part of that incubator for those few months, they coach you, train you, bring you outside help. And so Momina here runs Telenor Velocity, which is one of the best incubators in Pakistan, and now there are about 12, 15 of those. So I think I've used my time to explain incubator.
Well, I don't have a lot of experience with incubators, but I think they would definitely be useful. I mean, for a startup of mine, for example, I don't get a lot of help, or I don't have an accountant because I can't afford it. If you have an incubator where you share all these resources, and where you have the available youth programmers, it would help a lot to make to lower the threshold for people to start entrepreneurship or entrepreneuring. It would lower the threshold, so I think it would be very good. But I don't know if they have to be specific for a certain region, because an incubator looks at your problems, your situation, and tries to help you with that. So I guess that's the overarching way it works.
The incubators and most of the universities, I think they are doing quite okay. In terms of actually, the university only has to, like you said, only provide a place, internet connection and things like that. The rest is up to the person who wants to do some startup or some business of idea or whatever. So the university is looking at only government level, it is being done like pretty good. It is, I think, good chance, but at university level, I actually haven't worked with any incubator method, but I know many incubators, and I think they are doing quite good. I think they are up to an executive as far as I know.
Well, Usman, I guess you've been part of the Telenor group for some time with the ECPay, and Telenor has its own accelerator now, incubator in India. What do you think that, in terms of pushing people forward for the entrepreneurship, are they effective, or is it just going to be like, they just provide some sort of support to the startups? I mean, I've been through a cycle of incubation and acceleration myself as well, and I do understand that, it gives you, especially in terms of convincing your parents, it does give you a lot of help, and the environment around you is such that, it motivates you. But apart from that, do you think that they are doing some sort of real contribution?
Absolutely. There's no question about the need for incubators to be there in the first place. I think we're all pretty convinced that yes, like you said, it does provide an environment where people with ideas can come and implement without having to go through a lot of hassles and resources. So in terms of, I think it doesn't matter what model we are following. We talked about the Silicon Valley model. Look, these things are irrelevant. I think what really matters is having that conducive environment in place and giving people options to to have access to these incubators so that they can go and I call it a sandbox environment where they go and play around with their ideas. Why not? So I think it's a move in the right direction.
I think what's important is what problems are you solving? So Silicon Valley is at a very different stage of evolution.
Yeah.
They're solving very different high-tech problems. Pakistan has very basic problems right now. So all of our incubators or the cohorts we take in our incubators should be, and I think to an extent are, being focused on solving local problems. And I think it just creates a great ecosystem. When entrepreneurs come together, they get help from professors, they get potential investors. A lot of the good incubators help bring Pakistanis who've been very successful in technology and other businesses abroad, and they bring them on board as sort of motivational speakers or even as mentors. So I think it's going really well. A new one has opened up in Islamabad, funded by Mobilink as well.
Yeah.
So it's good. It's competition in the right place.
And you did mention a little bit about the challenges of like a shared economy. What do you think that with the ecosystem being developed, what challenges do you see in terms of that the startups are going to face? And one of the challenges that comes to my mind is that one of the one of the hindrances that actually stops startups from being very, very innovative and come up with revolutionary technologies that can, actually solve some local problems in the local context is that an absence of patents and an absence of, copyrights and the sort of support that they can get from the government, from the policymakers. So where do you see that going?
So, first of all, if you look at Pakistan, our problems do not require a lot of thought leadership. They require execution leadership because the ideas and the solutions already exist. We just have to implement them over here. So the first set of challenges that you get is a regulatory challenge. So, for example, we already have Easy Paisa. We already have online banking transfers, but there are limits to how much money you can transfer. So I can send you 5,000 rupees, but if I need to do a transaction and send you 5 billion rupees, I cannot do that. That's just a state bank law. The enabling technology is already there. Same thing, let's say there's so many people here in this room are teachers. So let's say you start recording your lessons and start putting them online, and you start teaching tuition on the internet, and people start paying you through Easy Paisa. Now tomorrow, someone, and they're already doing it. Now tomorrow, the education department might wake up and say, aha, in order for you to be able to allow to teach a 7-year-old, you need to be a licensed teacher and be a part of a recognized institution. So we disallow you from providing this service from the comfort of your home. Now, the technology is already there. The emancipation has happened. The legislation is lagging. And while the legislation is not there, the Secretary Saab of the government will basically treat you like you've just sold 2 pounds of cocaine. That is the challenge. And I don't know if you guys saw stuff in the media. That's how we were treated a few weeks ago.
Well, Martin, do you have sort of a different perspective, like how things are back there in the Netherlands?
Well, you mentioned patents.
Patents and in terms of regulation of startups, and like if Junaid just mentioned that if somebody just wants to tutor a child, and if they do not have a license of as a teacher, qualified teacher, so what happens in such circumstances?
In terms of teaching, I have no idea, but in the
Yeah.
Netherlands, we generally have the idea that you should just do whatever you want to, and if if the rules don't provide for it yet, then you should just be doing it, and that will eventually change the rules. And I think that with patents, the kind of the same thing is happening. The whole concept of a patent is kind of outdated, especially in the design world, because people can copy each other anyway. because I put my digital designs online. People often ask me, aren't you worried that people will copy it? But I'm not, because that's not the value that I'm adding, the smart design that I'm making. It's the software that's behind it, it's all the individual designs that I'm creating. That's the value that I'm adding. And I think if your value is only that you have this protection over a certain thing that you invented, that you probably used a lot of help or a lot of ideas that you saw in the rest of the world for, and a lot of patents are based on other patterns. And I think by keeping hold of this, that's not the way forward. That's not really, that doesn't fit in the 21st century. I believe really in open source, and that together by developing these ideas individually, but working on the same ideas, you can get a much better, much brighter future.
Well, great. I think you just answered one of the questions we received from the audience. It said that on the subject of economy, I think when you create this kind of democratization will make it harder for artists, designers, startups to survive. What do you think? So,
I think the only way to survive is to be clever about it, and but otherwise there's no reason for you to be there.
well, thank you so much. We're going to proceed to our question and answer session. We have lots of questions. Okay, yeah. So now that we're moving towards a phase where we are integrating online systems into the economy, there are concerns of the safety of our online. What are the safeguarding protocols of the system that are being introduced? So I guess what they mean is that in terms of yeah, sure. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I just meant privacy.
Yeah, privacy. Yeah. So.
There is no such thing as privacy.
I was going to say the same thing.
Hire a data scientist and they'll tell you what's your favorite color in 5 minutes. Just by looking at your browsing history.
Just go to criminal things and
Well, I guess that's also one of the challenges that everybody's going to face and are still facing with the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and with source data out there available, that how the privacy issues are going to be dealt with. We'll see in the future that how will be done. So if I want to become an entrepreneur and I have skills but I don't have capital, what to do and who to consult, how to sell my idea.
go to a makerspace and sell it digitally.
Go to Kickstarter.
There's plenty of ways to pitch ideas with a low budget, and maybe eventually you will need some money to enroll it globally. But to start, there's a lot of opportunities.
And I think this is where, again, we keep talking about incubators and accelerators. I mean, they're the vehicles which make that journey easier for you. And I think for any person with an idea, I mean, there's no reason why you can't approach an accelerator or an incubator and pitch your idea. If the idea has depth or value in it, there's no reason why. And again, I think everybody knows entrepreneurship is more about persistence than anything else. So you have to be persistent. You have to really believe in the fact that your idea is worth it.
I think we had a very, very healthy conversation about what the future of entrepreneurship is going to be like. We certainly are going to see lots of changes coming up in the next few years, and we only know that how to deal with them. I would like to thank all my panelists for coming here and taking out time to share your ideas and opinions with us, and thanks to all the audiences for listening to us. And let's give them a big round of applause.